Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Who Are We podcast. I have a special guest with us today. Silvia, how are you today?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you, Trevor. Thanks a lot. Thank you for having me.
No, thanks for being here. Just before we get going, we might just see how we go from there. So we might just get straight into it and see how we go. And I know that you're quite a way away, and sometimes we do have some internet connectivity problems and that, but we'll just try and march through it and see how we go. So who is Silvia and what does she stand for?
Right. I know what I've been asking myself this question for, oh goodness sake, for a very long time. And it's never static, I have to say. It changes from day to day. And I guess the answer to that is the core of me is the love, compassion, empathy, and care. But I also bring the dark sides of me, and that is the jealousy, the being greedy at times, and those parts of myself come at different times in different form, different shape, with different people, and I guess it's showing myself wherever I go, there I am in different times, different shape, different form, the good, the bad, and all parts of me are welcomed. And I think it's about what I stand for is being passionate about the self-validation of that I'm not only good. There are also parts of me that I admire, that they were dark when I was younger. I worked on them, but that doesn't mean they never show up. They still do. But it's about self-awareness, and that I actually can take that to look at it. Why did that trigger me at that moment, So that there is not a clear definition of me, but there are multi-dimensional definitions of me, if that makes sense. And as I mentioned, I am passionate about self-development and how one person can make a difference in relationship with another. And with my working with young people, and also being a mom, I need to bring my best self. And if I don't, that's okay too. So coming from self-compassion rather than self-judgment. And that's what I've been learning for every single day, to be honest. Self-compassion, don't judge myself, and just look at it where I made a mistake and maybe do-overs with my son and with my young people that I work with as well. It's a very long answer.
No, that's amazing. And it's something that it's very easy to get caught up in being disappointed with ourselves and like you say, judging yourself. So having that awareness just to show compassion regardless is quite insightful. And it's interesting, you're the first person that's actually identified, I suppose, to different emotions that we feel, because they're all emotions, aren't they? Compassion, empathy, care, and you talk about even negative ones, jealousy and greed, as being emotions, and that's sort of how you sort of identify at any given time. You may be compassionate or you may be greedy or something, depends on what's going around you, and accepting that emotion is something that helps you self-care, I suppose, in some way, doesn't it?
100%. I think that's rather than being in shame or being ashamed of it and feeling guilty, that's who I am, I don't take that it's all of me, it's part of me. And when I actually, with self-compassion, say, you know what, that is something that maybe comes or stems from my childhood. I'm aware of it, but it's about the do-over with that person that is actually not on them. It's me. It's something to do with me. And it's about me finding why that happened, so the why behind it, and then go to that person and just discuss it. And because that obviously it's like a domino ripple effect, isn't it? If I work on myself, I better relationship with other people. If something triggers me, that other person may feel their own way or may trigger something in them. So I think that it's about welcoming every single part of me, not to be ashamed of it, but to actually, with self-compassion, to say, you know what, this is not me anymore. It's part of me. And I need to show up for myself to do better next time.
Yeah. And just embrace it. It sounds like you're embracing life and how the circumstances of it are. But it's interesting. It sounds like you're investigating some of these triggers or some of these negative emotions or some of these behaviors that you have when you're interacting with your other relationships in your life with a sense of curiosity. So you're approaching it with a sense of curiosity in that, why did I behave like that when they said that, or why was I upset? And it's trying to relate it back to yourself rather than blaming because they said that. Yeah, well, why does their words impact me? It sounds like you're really trying to focus on yourself and self responsibility, I suppose, for your actions and your words that you speak, as opposed to sort of blaming other people. Is that how you see it?
You know what? The key word what you said is sense of curiosity.
Yeah.
And if you have sense of curiosity, then you about yourself and others, you also start to actually navigate that route that other people traveled, and you try to understand them better. But if you don't have that sense of curiosity, then you can get stuck. And I always say to explain it to my young people in a way that everybody was born with a map of the world in their heads, but the experiences in our life, the terrain started to be different. And that's why when I say something, the map of the world, I operate from that sense of the map of the world that I understand with the terrain I have in my mind. And they operate from a completely different. So if there is no sense of curiosity, then there is lots of misunderstandings.
Yeah.
Because how I say things, they mean something different to you. And by clarification and curiosity, you might also find the common ground and maybe agree to disagree as well, if that needs to be done. But I think that if the curiosity is a key word in it, for sure.
And it sounds like communication is pretty important because you are talking, you have, I have sort of heard you talk about continually improving each day and reflecting on that. But in that reflection, it seems to me that you're trying to build on your communication skills to try and understand different perspectives. Because like you said, we might be talking the same language, but our personal experiences and our personal map, as you call it, is different. So we might be, the different perspectives could be creating the friction or something there. So with clean, precise communications, and like you say, you may have to say, okay, I don't agree with you on that one. That's fine, but try not to do it in a angry, aggressive type, mind-changing way. Just honest communications. Is that resonating with what you're saying?
Yeah, 100%. Yes, absolutely. And I think it's the owning it, owning your words, but also validating the other person's truth.
Yeah.
So without validation or acknowledgement, and if you're just saying your truth or your opinions or what you've been through, it doesn't necessarily mean that you understand the other person. And I always say, try to listen to understand rather than listen to reply.
Yeah.
And if there is the understanding and validation of the person's truth, which may not match yours, but at least you will see their perspective. But without validation, acknowledgement, the curiosity, I think that's where the miscommunication, we can get lost in translation. Let's put it this way.
Yeah. And do you find, because like there's been a few models of communication taught to us in the trauma-informed sort of method. Some of them was LACE, I think, was one. Listen, acknowledge, clarify, and expand. There was another one. It might have been care even. It might have been care. But yeah, there's different approaches. But do you find by paraphrasing or summarising how you interpret what they're saying can help get that I suppose communicate that you are listening. So by repeating what they're sort of saying and say, this is what I'm hearing you say this, is that right? Do you feel that sort of approach in everyday conversation is helping you, or is it just something that you're just doing when you're working with your clients or your students or whatever?
It's one of them. It's one of them. And at the same time, with young people, you might find that, well, what I find is when I paraphrase, they roll their eyes. It's like, oh my God, you are parroting, or, why just repeating what I say? Is the annoyance there? So when I work with young people, it tends to be slightly different than with adults. Yeah. So with adults, I would choose the language, is this what you're saying, just to clarify? Or I paraphrase, yes. But it's just maybe I say something similar, but not the words they used.
Yeah.
But I always say, this is what I'm offering to you.
Yeah.
Can you change it, or can you say it your own way, or what would you change? Because I find so many young people don't actually have the language how to express their emotions, their feelings, or even thoughts. So sometimes when I offer them something, they might change it or say, yeah, that's how I would say, maybe change of that, or no, this part is not correct. And I love if I'm incorrect, because it's their work, it's how they feel. So I think that it's just depending who it is. I need to be very mindful of their trauma, how far it goes as well. If the language was developed, emotions, feelings, but also cognitively, how far they are or how low they are in the cognition. So the language varies. So I can work with secondary age children chronologically, 16-year-olds, but emotionally they are on level 8. So I'm going to communicate with them 8-year-olds, not 16 chronologically.
Yeah. So yeah, just understanding the audience is something that it sounds like is pretty important when you're working with these younger people in particular. Yeah, because I find because we are all human and we aren't perfect, and it's easy to get caught up in if we're making mistakes and we do the wrong thing or we say the wrong thing, and as happens to me quite often on social media, and I've been doing it for quite some time, because you can't interpret words on a keyboard like when you type it in your text or whatever. And it's probably similar when you're talking to people and you're talking about, different people have different maps and interpretations and we sort of established that. But it can be quite challenging if different people are at different levels of, for example, trauma recovery, because obviously you can say stuff that's probably not perceived as non-triggering for you, but if it was a specific thing that happened to them or something, because I often see different people, highly traumatized people at different spectrums of the same debate over the same thing, but because they've experienced it against themselves personally, then their perspective is that it's attacking their circumstance, and this other person's saying, oh no, this it's attacking this, and it's really difficult because the same issue can be seen complete polar opposites, isn't it? And that's why it can become a juggling act sometimes.
Absolutely. I think that's like if you work in groups, isn't it? That's very inevitable that it will happen. And at the same time, by application of empathy and compassion and holding space, and it's rather safe space, because safety is such a massive word in terms of what's safe for you. It doesn't have to be safe for me. So I call it more of a brave space. Be brave to communicate, or just to say whatever you need or you want, but also holding that space for everybody in terms of holding. Can you stop, pause, and let's seek the empathy and compassion, show that, rather than, again, listen to, reply, whatever is coming, from your experience. So I think that holding the empathy and compassion in a place is very important. And some young people and I've heard you talking previously about, young people and the main issues in Australia. I find lots of people, young people at the moment, there is lack of empathy these days and compassion for another human being. And I think that modeling that one-to-one in a group, and as from Trauma Informed, every second or every 5 seconds of interaction matters. That's Trauma Informed. And that is the 5 seconds of how I interact with you matters. It doesn't matter, if you go somewhere else and you interact with somebody else differently, but my 5 seconds with you matters.
Might have a difference.
And it's the modeling. And sometimes I always say, this saying, it takes a village, the whole village to raise a child. And sometimes it feels like, because I'm trauma-informed, I'm responsive, that it's all up to me to do the work. And the people who are not around me, I can't change everything myself, So we need the whole community as a society. Sometimes it feels like we're failing young people at some, at times, because there is not holding of community for that one child, or I don't know how many.
And I found that same thing, because working in suicide prevention, it's often the first thing that you're taught, I suppose, is people's choices are their choices, because obviously, and it's happened to me several times, that people that I work with have ultimately ended their life. And it's a very tough conversation, and it's quite easy to take the blame on what you could have done better, or what you could have said different, or whatever. And it can be quite challenging. But one of the things that helps me through it is I'm there to help, and people's decisions are their own decisions, I suppose, and understanding that. But when we're talking in these group sessions, one of the biggest things that I found in some of these groups was eye language. I don't know, have you heard of that? So, like, for men, it might be a little bit different, but I mainly work with young men. And for example, there might be some comments, when I get home from work and I'm cranky, I kick the dog, or how you kick the dog when you're cranky, don't put us all in that boat. We all don't kick the dog when we're cranky. You got to own it and say, okay, when you get cranky, you kick the dog, and try not to project what you're doing onto other people. Is that part of your group sort of interactions, and trying to take ownership on your feelings, or on your actions, or try not to project it onto other people?
Oh, what, with young people, it's tough, but I think it's sometimes easier with adults, because they are, as we know, with a change of brains, we are on a different level. But with young people, it's very difficult to take accountability for their actions. And because to talk about the feelings and emotion is so difficult, I'm not saying impossible, because it is possible with relationship. It's a tough one. But then I'm thinking, going back, where did it start, not taking accountability? Where did I learn that from? It's always, I'm going back. What did that cause, not taking accountability, not knowing my emotion, not talking about my feelings? I don't know how to do that. Where does it stem from? And sometimes I feel that young people, we are holding young people accountable for everything rather than adults. Adults need to be accountable. We are adults for a reason. We are called adults for a reason. Children don't have as we don't have a map or a manual for parenting, for therapy, or for teaching. There is no manual for kids how to live it. We are the teachers of life for them. And if an adult takes an accountability for their own actions, and, in therapy, I had a lot of young people, I said sorry sometimes, because at the end of, as at the end of therapy, sometimes they walk off and they just drop the bomb right towards the end. And sometimes it's difficult to handle in that situation. So it's coming back the next time. And if I do apologize for something, for lack of time or a lack of whatever that is, I have a lot of young people actually being shocked that adult never apologized to them. And me being a parent, I think it's very important to actually apologize to my son, because he knows I'm taking accountability for my actions, and he does that naturally. So I'm talking about the teachings. Where are we learning the taking accountability for? We learn it at home, we learn it in school, but adult needs to show how to do that again through modeling, isn't it?
That's very powerful, because just reflecting on that, saying you're sorry, because I know that that's something that we've done too when like something's really drastically happened to cause trauma, and saying you're sorry to someone does lift that weight. Wow, someone does care and someone is sorry, even though it's not personally my fault that happened to you, but just say, I'm very sorry to hear that, or I'm sorry that happened to you, and these things shouldn't happen to you. And that is just such a powerful message, I feel, to give to people. And like you say, modeling that to young people, I suppose, is like you say, helping them to take responsibility. And that's a very beautiful message. Thank you for sharing that, because I feel that is a powerful, an apology is a powerful thing, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely. And there are different sorries. You don't have to be sorry maybe for your actions, but be sorry that I hurt you, because I'm a human being too. So there are different, when we say sorry, it doesn't mean you're apologizing for your words. If you don't want to, of course, but take accountability for your actions and for your words. But if you don't want to do that, it's the appreciation that, hold on, I may be hurting somebody else's feelings. So I'm going to apologize. I hurt you. And it's about, I always say, communicating needs. What are your needs? What do you need from me? Because there is something I have not met. And that's why the behavior goes different directions as well. What do you need from me in this moment? I think that's always very key question for me, to all young people, even adults. I practice it constantly. What do you need from me? Or what do you need at the moment? And somebody might just say nothing. So it's just being with. I'm just going to be with you, next to you, silently, and holding the space again.
Yeah. And that's amazing. Yeah. And that's the sort of thing, I suppose, the beauty of doing these podcasts, I suppose, is getting gems like that and just having talks and helping people probably, listening to this to be able to practice. You say, you're practicing this all the time, trying to get better and better at your communications. And it sounds, these things, and we're not perfect all the time. We're far from it, but keeping on trying to get better and understanding why we say certain things, and that it's just amazing, I suppose, that you're relating like this. This is the first time, I suppose, in these podcasts where we're sort of looking at emotions as such, and as a human, we're all humans first, and having that understanding of, and that building that relationship. I feel it's very important. I think you mentioned, it takes a village, but often a lot of these people don't have stable family environments, don't have stable, grandparents living by, or whatever, or maybe the adults in their life are the ones that are causing them harm or whatever, and they don't have this great gym teacher at school that helps them, help them with some beautiful words of wisdom or whatever. So sometimes it's like you say, we can get hard on these kids to take responsibilities, especially here in Australia. Like, I don't know if you know, but there's, massive youth crime crisis at the moment, and identity crisis and everything, and even domestic violence, and all these things. It's really easy to say, oh, yeah, you got to do better, or you got to do this, and you got to, but it's like you say, looking in the mirror, where are they picking up these behaviors from, and what's going back to the core root of all that sort of stuff. I feel that's very important, and something that you've touched on.
I think that's youth crime especially, and I do work with it a lot. And that goes, I think, hand in hand with identity. It's a sense of belonging. And the sense of belonging, if I don't have that at home, I want to belong somewhere. And it's usually the outside world where we start to search for. And it's like, I'm sure I experienced it as a teenager. I wanted to be part of a group, I wanted to be part of something, be accepted, or belong to a group of people because I felt so misunderstood at home, So I think that sense of belonging, when the sense of belonging is created at home, there is a less opportunity for the young people seek that sense of belonging somewhere else outside of the family, Johnny.
Yeah.
So,
And,
yeah.
and I think too, just adding on that, just quickly, I know, we're talking about you and what you do on that, but just by building on that a little bit, with your family and trying to connect with it all and finding somewhere to belong. I just feel like at the moment with the crisis in cost of living, I suppose you're feeling it over there as well with the interest is going up and all this stuff. Somehow we've got to lose so many people have got to lose their jobs so the cash rate goes down or whatever. But having both parents stressed out and having to work maximum hours and overtime or whatever to help pay these bills is creating trouble with that relationship at home as well. So a lot of these society issues, which we're responsible for ultimately, is contributing to these young guys. So yeah, so I feel you're right when you say, where are they getting these behaviours from and why are they doing it, and having a little bit more of a compassion towards some of that does go a long way. And it's very easy to get, and I do too, get emotionally attached. Oh, these little rascals are stealing people's cars and smashing them into trees and all the rest of it and that. But having that compassion and empathy and asking and that curiosity as to why they're doing that, I feel could help us create better outcomes for everyone involved.
Absolutely. And I think that what you said there is it's almost an issue of our society and where we're heading. It's before, and I remember, and I'm sure from your childhood, we were more of a community, and now kids are more, or even families, for themselves. And naturally, there is a fight breaking out outside. You're going to go help, and you are the one who gets injured. So I think that it's the community is slowly somehow disappearing. But yet again, I have to say, in England, we have estates building, where new builds are built, and it's almost like they try to build the community back. That this is almost like the sense of belonging, give you sense of belonging on community. And also what you said about, yes, they go outside, but they're asking the why, 100%. Where, if a child's young person feels loved at home, if they feel understood, validated, the warmth is there, the empathy, compassion from carers, it's more difficult to actually go out and, you want to be at home because you feel safe enough.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and so no, that's great. So I'm getting, I can sense the compassion and the empathy and the care, and you haven't seen a lot of the jealousy or greed come out in these conversations, but obviously it depends on the circumstances. And I've got curiosity and continual self development is something that you strive for in your life. And it sounds like honesty in your conversations is important to you as well, and taking ownership on when you fail and trying to do better, do over. I think your exact words is do it over again until you get it right. Before we wrap up,
absolutely. You know what? Yep. Final message. I always have one message for everybody: repair the rupture. So the rupture happens naturally, and that can be on daily basis, weekly basis, monthly, yearly, whatever you want. Sometimes parent-child it can be on daily, especially with teenagers. But that rupture, if it's not repaired, the rupture stays. And that's the experience of a child, carries that experience throughout, in a relationship, romantic relationship, siblings, so it doesn't matter. Rupture equals repair. And I think that, and do-overs as well, so, okay, I was angry yesterday. That's fine. I'm really sorry. This is what I was going through. Whatever that is, can we have a do-over and have that conversation again? Because you're in a calmer state of mind. And it's almost like you're thinking, you've done the bad conversation already. It didn't go well. Let's do it again. But, from a different mindset, you're much calmer. So you are operating from a different point of view. And you are there to listen now. So rupture, repair, and do-overs. I think that's message for everyone.
Because it can be embarrassing.
And for myself.
Yeah. It can be embarrassing though, isn't it? To go back to someone where you had a fight or argument and to say you're sorry or to I don't know, take it all back or something. There's a bit of pride in that you have to sort of swallow, don't you, to sort of do all that. And it takes a lot of courage to be able to repair some of these ruptures. And your message is it's worth that effort to build that relationship in a long term, to stop the rot, I feel, is what you're saying. Just stop the trauma, stop the generational pain and end it and try and move on with it.
And also what I would want to add, you mentioned ego. And as you know, if you operate from an ego point, never goes well. So vulnerability, why am I here? Why am I loving this person? Why I want this to work? I want to give better, do better. And if we actually do it from a place of vulnerability, that's when the change starts. Because if we operate from ego can shut us down. It's there for protection, 100%. But at the same time, it can protect us with barriers around us. So if we go from a place of vulnerability, I've done something wrong. I'm not perfect. I still do it, Trevor. I work on myself constantly, but I'm a human being. I make mistakes, but I go back and operate from a place of vulnerability. This is what I've done wrong. I'm here to listen. Go on. Speak your mind. Yeah. It's the giving the opportunity again.
Yeah. And I feel these conversations could go on forever, but I'll let you go on that note. I'd like to thank you for sharing your amazing wisdom. There's been a couple of really good pieces of information that you shared with the audience today, and I'd like to thank you for the time, and perhaps we can catch up again in the future and continue on this, because I feel it could just go on forever.
I agree.
Thank you very much for joining us today. It's been wonderful to get to know you, and feel free to reach out and chat and that, and we'll certainly try and catch up again in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Trevor. Bye.